looking at the makerspace movement in terms of our built environment. The Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation, Deborah already did a great job of introducing who we are. We're really all about stewardship of historic places, and it doesn't mean preserving them statically. It means using them in a variety of ways, but keeping them in our landscape. We offer technical assistance through our field staff, who are called circuit riders. We do offer some grants for nonprofits and municipalities, and we're always available for any kind of guidance on preservation issues or issues with historic buildings. So one of the things that I sort of want to know, does anybody recognize the building on the screen? Okay, we have a few hands. And have you kind of been looking around at your environment?
Every day.
So you don't count. Deborah doesn't count. For those of you who don't know, we are in the GFox department building. GFox was a major department store in Hartford. The building was designed by Cass Gilbert, a major architect who's best known for the Woolworth building in New York. And it has some lovely 1935 deco transitions from later. This property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which made it eligible for tax credits and other kinds of incentives. And for about a year now, Deborah, it's been the home to makerspaces.
We've been here for a couple of years building out.
Oh, a couple of years.
April.
Right.
You know, if you bend it down a little, it might, you got your laptop there, but you got it.
Well, at any rate. So at any rate, so I raise this by way of saying our buildings can be reused in a variety of ways, and we're sitting here right now in one that just proves the point. So our urban and town center landscapes reflect the changing socioeconomic patterns that we experience, such as shifts in demographics and changes in manufacturing. And new construction often competes with existing buildings. Many of our older buildings are neglected, and sometimes they're seen as not offering modern amenities that people expect today. But you know, we say that these older buildings can be terrific opportunities. And this slide, this is a street scene in Stanford, which I think illustrates the point of that tension between new construction and old buildings and changes in our cities with changing demographics and economics. So I'm going to share some general examples of reuse and talk about how the Connecticut Trust can help find a factory space throughout the state. And then I will show ways in which collaborative space and co-working, that scene has already begun to re-energize our historic buildings and our downtowns. So here on the screen, we have examples of several large redevelopment projects that have transformed, well, on the upper right, a factory space. They used to make rifles, Winchester rifles. Into lofts. Down at the bottom is the former hotel, which is now apartments. And at left are two commercial buildings, which now have some commercial space as well as apartment space up top. These projects were made available by a variety of funding sources, including, in all cases, state and federal historic tax credit incentives. But other funding comes through the Department of Housing, Department of Economic and Community Development, and of course private equity, construction loans, that kind of thing. Now, we also see buildings like, you recognize the lower picture here, the one we're sitting in our downtowns. Colleges are bringing their classrooms into downtown buildings that previously served other purposes. So this isn't the only department building. Post University in Waterbury has moved into what used to be a department store there. And then just nearby here, UConn has repurposed the Hartford Times building. So Deborah mentioned our mill website. And through this website, we've documented, I think it's I don't even know now, it's well over 1,000 historic industrial spaces, buildings in our state. Through this website, you can search by location, you can search by type of existing use, such as whether it's already being used residentially, commercially, or for mixed uses or industrial uses, or whether it's vacant or has vacancies. It's a tool that we hope people can use to find new spaces in which to take their enterprises in some cases, in your cases. We already have documented within the website many new uses of these buildings, but we also have many more that are still neglected, vacant, and they're opportunities for you guys as you begin to create your enterprises. These are 3 examples of loft conversions of factories. At upper left, Capital Lofts is right here in town, and that is all bringing, apartment dwellers, renters into town. Loom City Lofts is in Vernon. You're going to be hearing actually from the next speaker is from the Vernon area, a mill community, and again, these are residential redevelopments. And then the bottom one is Cherry Street Lofts. These conversions typically for loft projects are complex. They have issues ranging from environmental contamination to, the question of size. So for example, Cherry Street Lofts, the picture down below, that's just one phase of a multi-phase project. That project is actually an entire block that's comprised of something like 5 different mill buildings. And then their physical condition, of course, is another element in these conversion processes. And so again, these have impressive financial stacks to make these projects work. And some of the same things I mentioned, brownfields, DECD, LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, housing loans. There are municipal tax abatements and the historic tax credits that I already mentioned. But again, they're bringing people into downtowns in new ways. And these are typically renters, these are typically not condos. Okay, so now I want to switch over and share with you examples of mixed uses of mill buildings throughout our state that I hope will give you ideas. Some of them are already sort of innovation centers or maker spaces, but some of them I hope will give you ideas about the kinds of spaces that you can use. Maybe you already know some of them. This came online just this year. It's District. It used to be a bus facility for the Connecticut company, and it is now a co-work, a tech incubator and co-work campus. It offers high ceilings, flexible space, and in addition, this one is defined as a campus. It also offers the amenities that make it a community, that Ron was talking about. So they have an athletic club, a restaurant, a beer garden, and there's even a kayak launch that's accessible for the users of the community. Now this project is also on the financially high side. It took about $21.5 million to complete this project, including $6.4 million from EBCD and brownfields grants and loans. It also benefited from a streamlined review process because it's located in an opportunity zone. So there are all these different kind of incentives for these types of properties, and opportunity zones is the most recent thing that's instituted under Trump's administration, and it actually has very little to do with rehab. It's all about actually sheltering capital gains, but the funds are specifically used in our distressed urban areas to kind of create economic viability in those areas. Now, this is a 10-building complex down in Bridgeport, and it offers great space opportunities as well because of the variety of building types. So you've got, high ceiling clearances, those flexible floor plans, and then a relatively low cost per square foot. They've got a number of co-work and innovation spaces in these industrial buildings. And unlike, I think there are about 160 businesses, tenants, these spaces range from 200 square feet to 15,000 square feet. This particular property is under private management. It was developed, financed, and managed by a private group, specifically with the goal of providing an entrepreneurial environment for the small and mid-sized companies in the Fairfield County area. It has these wonderful, you have brick lofts with those windows as you see in that picture. And then I don't know if you know what a sawtooth roof is, but on the left side of the aerial are the triangular sawtooth of the roof that provides even northern light across the entire width of that factory, so that all of those spaces have this marvelous north light, which I think folks like you might appreciate. Now in Meriden, Meriden is a representative of a municipality that is using an incentive zone for the reuse of their historic buildings. These incentives have sort of a dual purpose. They're trying to bring these properties back onto the tax rolls. And of course, they're also, by doing that, hopefully benefiting the local economy more generally, and kind of bringing health and vitality back into the community. So in this case, the zone, it's an enterprise zone. And what that means here is that some renovations to the leased spaces within this building may be eligible for tax abatements. So it's a great incentive, and this is, one of the ways that municipalities encourage this kind of reuse. Other overlays, there are historic overlays, historic industrial overlays, and that kind of thing. You can get sort of reductions on some of the code requirements, such as parking, setbacks, a variety of fire safety, that kind of thing. Now here, the costs are actually incredible, I think. They range from $2 to $12 a square foot, which sounds pretty darn reasonable to me. Like the Bridgeport complex, this facility has the different layers of construction, so it offers different types of spaces. And like District in New Haven, it has amenities like a restaurant and a fitness center. And there's actually a makerspace called Nesset that is located in this, it's a nonprofit collaborative that's located in this building. Now, another municipal solution to the reuse of industrial buildings is in Middletown. So the city of Middletown took possession of a former bicycle and typewriter factory in 1999. It had been kind of used for drugs and stuff, some legit operations, some not so. They took about over a dozen years. They took care of environmental issues. They transformed the site into a small business incubator, and they've got about 25 tenants. Now, the 1,000-foot-long factory, as part of their kind of goal for this, they retrofitted it with solar panels so that it provides most of the electricity, in turn reducing the utility costs when you are at that compound. Great breweries in here. Also, that's a theme actually we see in our surveys. Breweries are in factories everywhere. That flexible space, they love it. There's a great brewery here. So nearby here in town, these are two buildings in Hartford. To the left is Gray Manufacturing. They make telephone parts, and Underwood Computing, typewriters basically. They've been rehabbed for quite some time. On the right, it's Arbor Arts, it's called, and it's studio spaces, design, nonprofits, etc. But the Gray Manufacturing also has lofts. but there's a new makerspace there, Make Hartford. They're a community of, and this is what they call themselves, I don't know if this terminology, it's new to me, but artists, technologists, I'm not familiar with that, and entrepreneurs. Now, we also have a number of smaller, privately held, mixed-use mills. And these are typically built out, the spaces inside are typically built out as tenants are identified and lease space. So this example is in Winstead. Like innovation centers, the more formal centers, they bring together a variety of entrepreneurs, artists, and craftsmen. They just aren't specifically organized that way. It just so happens that the space is compelling, I think. There are many examples throughout the state, and if you go onto the website and you look up mixed-use mills, you can find some more examples. There's some Terrafil in Simsbury, the Hilliard Mill in Manchester, there's the American Velvet. Oh, that's a fantastic place down in Stonington. And now, another type of reuse that we see, so these are industrial complexes. Like the others, the main manufacturer left long ago, Fafner Bearing. But unlike the others, there's not a kind of a sense of rehab. People aren't thinking of them differently, they're thinking of them as industrial space. But because they're so huge, they do kind of fulfill that same role. So they don't have that same sense of community necessarily, but they provide opportunities for small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs to come in and use the space. And the company that's featured here is called Adero, and you all might know what this is, I don't actually. It's a high-precision additive technology company. And they just took a small part of this manufacturing space. And that's another way that we can reuse these factories for the same purposes, in essence, that they were originally intended for, but in today's technologies. So former factories aren't the only buildings that can and do accommodate makerspaces. We've got this wonderful downtown building in New Milford. I think it's a 1904 commercial building. And it now houses Makery co-working. It's a small-scale, open, collaborative environment across 2 floors. They offer classes, they have meetings there, etc. Another example has just opened. We just saw it in the paper. This is down in Hamden, and now this is taking a school and rehabbing the school and adapting it to a makerspace. It's called Borough 496. Borough 496 was built by the Hamden Economic Development Corp. The school had closed in 1917. The school was built in 1917, and it closed because of soil contamination. So the city was involved in this to help resolve some of those issues. And they used state U.S. Department of Commerce grants and historic tax credits and the brownfields monies as well. Now here, incubator members will have access to web designers, IT experts, investment mentors, and bank representatives, as well as a cafe. I think the bank representative is a really interesting one, and I don't know if this is common to makerspaces. I was talking to a colleague of mine about this, that there is some trepidation from lending institutions to lend small businesses, and we're also seeing it at the state level. There are some local banks which are interested in supporting local businesses, local startups, and entrepreneurs. And so this is an interesting integration to have them right there on site with your makers and makerspaces. Done long before them. So I actually am pretty much done. So I just want to reiterate the point that Our town centers have a wide variety of historic buildings that are still underutilized, and they can be activated by the energy of makerspaces and local place-based entrepreneurs. I think that's something that the Urban Manufacturing Alliance talks a lot about. So keep in mind, their spaces, they're open, they're flexible. I mean, like this, a former department store or a former mill, they have these high ceilings, they may have lots of light streaming in. And I think that they sort of kind of foment the creative juices. I don't know if you all feel this way as well, but they are kind of inspirational spaces. They are also, oftentimes, there are local, state, and federal incentives that will help you out. Somebody probably today has talked about the sort of Connecticut's kind of small business stuff. I know their program is dropping down, but there are programs that they have to assist you there. And that's about all I have to share with you today.